This is Quick Clip 5.07 Spring Forces. And let's start out this clip with a question. Do springs always spring all the way back? In other words, when you stretch a spring or a rubber band, does it always return to the exact same shape? Well, the answer to that is no. There comes a point where you can overstretch something and it won't return back to its original form. As an example, you see this spring here, where on the right you see that the spring seems to be intact and in its original shape, but over on the left you can see that it seems to be overly stretched and is not in its original shape. So the point here is that there is a limit to how far you can stretch a spring or an elastic band. Next we have Hooke's law, and here we have the formula for Hooke's law, which is F equals K times the delta X, right? That triangle represents, or is called delta. It's the Greek letter delta. So F is the force. The delta X stands for the change in distance, or in this case, the distance that the spring was stretched. And then K is the elastic constant. And the elastic constant is simply a number that represents the strength of the spring. Let's show you an example of how this formula can be used. Here, a spring stretches to a distance of 10 centimeters with a force of 50 newtons. What is the elastic constant of the spring? So plugging that in, we have 50 newtons as the force, equal to K, the constant, times the delta X, which is 10 centimeters, because that's how far it was stretched. We work out the math by dividing both sides by 10, and our K constant is then going to equal 5. Another example would be a spring stretches to a distance of 6 centimeters with a force of 90 newtons. What is the elastic constant of the spring? All right, so again, plugging it in, we have 90 newtons equals K times 6. Working out the math, we're dividing both sides by 6, and then our K constant is then 15. And my final example here is more intuitive, not even using the formula. Here we have 4 springs stretched by the same mass. Which spring has the greatest spring constant? Spring A stretches 25 centimeters, spring B 10, spring C stretches all the way down to 100 centimeters, and spring D only stretches 1 centimeter. So if each weight at the end of each spring is the same, which spring is the strongest? And so, of course, the correct answer would be 1 centimeter, because it was strong enough not to stretch so far out. All right, so the one on the right would have the greatest spring constant. All right, hope that helps in the lesson.